you're a YouTube creator with several interests, you may have thought about starting a second YouTube channel at some point or another. And for many creators out there, it can seem like a really good idea. For example, I have 3 YouTube channels. But with having the experience of running 3 different YouTube channels over the years, I really wanted to film this video today to talk about some of the pros and cons of having more than one YouTube channel. I often don't think this topic gets talked about enough amongst creators, and for some creators it can be one of the best things they ever do, and for others, not so much. But if you're new to this channel, my name is Kaylee and I'm a beauty and fashion photographer based near Sydney, Australia. But I'm also a content creator, and I started this channel a few years ago to talk about all things business, content creation, social media, and freelancing. And as I've mentioned, in today's video we'll be talking about some of the pros and cons of starting another YouTube channel. Now, to begin this video, I just want to reiterate again, I have 3 YouTube channels myself. This was not something that I intended at the beginning of my YouTube journey either, and that was now about 10 years ago when I started my first and main channel, which is a photography and retouching tutorial channel. And being a photographer at the time, back in 2014 when I first started, I really loved the idea of sharing information and sharing knowledge around running a freelance business, about being a photographer, on photo shoots, behind the scenes. I really wanted to capture a lot of that and put that onto YouTube, because at the time, with the exception of one of my really good friends, Jessica Kobasi, there really wasn't a lot of free to access information online for photographers and creatives in that way. So I really wanted to hop on board that train and really contribute in that way. So of course, initially my intention for YouTube was to only have the one YouTube channel. And although I had many different interests over my lifetime, I was pretty set in my career goals of being a photographer. I wanted to get into fashion and beauty. That was always what I wanted to do. And I did that for quite a long time. And it was definitely something I'd started pretty much from the time of leaving school. I think I was around 15, 16 when I first picked up a camera to do photography and to really experiment more with it. And basically from that point onwards, I knew what I pretty much wanted to do. However, the only thing with this was that I was interested in several genres of photography at the time. I really liked the idea of pursuing fashion and beauty because I felt there was a lot of freedom with it. And I felt like with that particular category, I could be really creative and it would always be something new. But I also had a really strong love for travel, and I still do. And that love never really left. And I always kind of imagined myself also doing travel photography one day, or landscapes and the outdoors. I just really loved it. And it was actually landscape photography and outdoor photography that got me initially into photography anyway. So there was definitely always that love for travel. And I kind of always had this itch that I just didn't get the chance to scratch over the last decade, because I was so focused on doing my main YouTube channel with fashion photography, beauty photography. I was so focused on improving my work in that genre, and I really just didn't have a lot of time to think about it. However, that started to change in around 2017, 2018, when my partner and I started to travel a lot more, and we were really enjoying traveling and exploring the world more together. And he was also into landscape photography and travel photography. And I started to pick up my camera more when we would go outdoors and we would go hiking and we would go traveling. And I really enjoyed that side of things a lot more. And then I'd always had this kind of like idea of doing travel vlogging. I always liked the idea of doing it. It was something that I really wanted to try in my lifetime. So my partner and I actually started a travel vlogging channel back in about 2017, I think it was, where we basically just started doing some vlogs. And we then took our cameras overseas. Whenever we would go on a trip, basically from that point onwards, we would vlog. And still to this day, I am posting to that channel. Unfortunately, not as much as I would like, because it is more of a passion project channel and we try and find the time for it whenever we can. But unfortunately, it's still not #1 priority, but we definitely try to post there whenever we can. So that's my other channel that I do post to. And then of course, the third channel is this one here. So back in around 2021, when we were going through the pandemic, I was at home a lot. I had a lot of interest in business, in social media, and I was kind of even tweaking some of my main content on my main channel towards more photography business topics and, you know, how to start your own business, how to charge your clients, that sort of thing. And I was really getting more and more interested in that. And then I thought to myself, well, I really love talking about this stuff, but I really want to widen the kind of audience that I'm reaching with this and really kind of go more into content creation and social media, because I feel like I've got a lot of knowledge having worked with this now for 10 years. And at the time even, I still think that there's a lot unsaid about social media and running an online business, being a full-time content creator or freelancer. And I just wanted to really get all the information out there and do kind of like a variety of content. And I felt that I was very trapped in my photography channel with doing Photoshop tutorials and obviously photography related content. So again, there became this kind of like itch that I wanted to scratch. So I started another YouTube channel. Now, for a lot of people out there, where you might be thinking that I was pretty crazy for starting a third YouTube channel, because I was finding it difficult enough to keep up with posting to my main channel, my photography channel. But I think after 10 years of posting on that channel pretty regularly, I was starting to feel that I wanted to maybe drop back a little bit with that channel, to the point where I wasn't posting on it so much, and really start to focus on other ventures too. So I think a lot of creators get to that point when they've been posting to one singular YouTube channel for a long time, that they feel the need to do something else. And I think that that's also very normal. I sometimes think and reflect about my initial thoughts with my career and everything like that. I do think that it's not necessary to stay in the same career your entire life. I think it's very normal for people to want to do different things, to push boundaries more, to evolve. And that's, I think, what ended up happening with me. Obviously, I still love photography. Obviously, I still run that channel and I still post to it, and I still do things within that industry and do photo shoots, do test shoots, but I don't do it to the same extent that I was several years ago, because I obviously have more interest these days and I'm trying to focus on different things as well. So I do think for a lot of creators, this is kind of where the idea for a second channel does stem from. You may have many different ideas that you've always thought about doing, or some things that you've wanted to try, but you felt held back with other things that you've decided to pursue as well. So I always think it's difficult to narrow down those kind of niches that you want to get into with YouTube and with social media in general. But I also think that after having these several YouTube channels now for a number of years, I can now look back and confidently say I'm glad that I did start these channels, because I do feel that there was a lot of pros to them. And I'm actually going to go through the pros now of starting more than one YouTube channel. So the first pro is that you'll likely feel more creatively fulfilled. And this especially comes along with the fact if you find it difficult to decide on a niche to pursue and you wanted to pursue several, this way of creating content on YouTube with several YouTube channels can definitely make you feel more creatively fulfilled and more content with yourself. As I mentioned, having that itch that you can't always scratch kind of like eats away at you after a while, and you sometimes tend to have regrets about not doing things maybe sooner or not doing things at all. So I always think if there's the opportunity to take a chance with things like this and take a chance with another niche that you want to pursue, you should do it. And I can honestly say after the last few years with having several YouTube channels, I definitely feel more creatively fulfilled now. I feel that I don't have so many regrets with not starting other projects, with not focusing on other ventures as well. Now that I am, I feel a lot more content within myself. The second pro is that it's a lot more interesting. You feel like it's always something different that you're working on with several YouTube channels, and things don't really get as boring as they might with having just one YouTube channel. I find this a really big pro because for me personally, I find it hard to focus on things for long periods of time without feeling bored, without feeling stifled creatively. So I always like the fact that there's a little bit more of a new challenge with each of the YouTube channels that I have to then work my way towards overcoming. And I like the idea of always having something different between the YouTube channels. I really do love that. The next pro is there's another potential revenue stream with having a second or several YouTube channels. So obviously if you're able to get monetized on each of your YouTube channels, that is going to provide you with another stream of income. And that's a really good thing, because as a content creator or even as a freelancer, you can never have enough income streams. And I always say that. So if you're able to get several YouTube channels monetized, that's always going to be a good thing. And along with that pro, it actually gives you more stability as a creator. Having several YouTube channels means that you're not putting all of your eggs into one basket. And I see this time and time again with a lot of YouTube creators where they've banked on one particular YouTube channel that they've had. And unfortunately for many of us, after a long time of posting to just that one YouTube channel, inevitably a lot of them have their peak at some point, and then sadly a lot of them do tend to go downhill eventually. And this is the thing that I think a lot of creators are not very aware of when they start YouTube, is that they think once they get on that high with their YouTube channel, it's going to last forever. And I would say for most of us, it doesn't. So I think that's something very important to keep in mind if you're looking at doing this full time eventually. Sometimes it's a good idea to have more than one YouTube channel so you're not resting on just one channel. You have your eggs over several different baskets, which is a good thing. And then tying in with that point once again, it means that you'll have a variety of opportunities. Now specifically, I mean this in conjunction with brand deals. If you've got several different YouTube channels with several different niches, you're going to have a much wider variety of brands that you can potentially work with, rather than if you just focus on one niche on one YouTube channel. This is actually a really incredible thing because it means that you'll be able to work with an array of different brands. And I think that that's really cool, because even if a brand maybe approaches you on one of your channels and you don't feel like it's a perfect fit, fit, maybe one of your other channels will be a better fit. And then you can always recommend that brand to your other YouTube channel. Also, using cross promotion as a way of earning yourself a better income and working with brands more consistently is a great way to go. So if you can work with a brand, for example, that you could post on each of your YouTube channels, if it's kind of a versatile brand in that way, then that's another really great win for you. So that is some of the pros that I have for starting a second YouTube channel. And I definitely think that if any of those pros really spark interest for you, then maybe it would be worthwhile considering it. I do, however, think that there are some cons to doing this, and I'm going to speak about some of them now. So the first con is that it's likely going to be a lot more work, and this would come down to editing and filming. This is obviously depending on the type of schedule you're setting yourself across several channels, but for me overall, it has definitely been a lot more work. And it's crazy to think I was even struggling to just keep up with, a couple of videos a week on my main channel. And I quite often even couldn't set myself a schedule with that channel. I just felt like it was really hard to continuously have output of content on that channel. And I do find that it's the type of channel these days now where I find it better to post a little bit less, like once a week or once a fortnight, which I'm currently doing. But now, not only do I have to be posting once a fortnight to that channel, I also post once a fortnight to the travel vlogging channel I have with my partner, Wonder Walkers. And then I also post 2 times a week to this channel. So this channel at the moment has the largest output of content. This is basically 2 times a week, every week. And I've been doing this now for nearly a year. And I've definitely found that getting into a routine of it, getting into a little bit of a production each week of how you do things and settling into a routine definitely helps with the output of content and handling extra workload, which this definitely has been for me. But I'm also lucky enough to have a little bit more time and flexibility with my lifestyle to allow for this extra work too. I know that not everybody out there is going to have that flexibility and that time, so it is something to consider. If you're struggling already to keep up with one YouTube channel, it may be difficult to also have a second YouTube channel. But also this really depends on the point that you're at with your original YouTube channel and whether you feel like you need to evolve, you need to move on a little bit, you need to reel back with that particular channel and start with some other ventures, because you can work around this. And just because it's extra work doesn't mean it's not going to be worth it. But I definitely feel that it is worth mentioning that this can be a lot for some people and it can be very overwhelming to have more than one YouTube channel. So unfortunately, that is one of the cons. As I mentioned, it really helps to get in a routine with this and have several days dedicated to different things. So usually during the week, I have a day that's dedicated to filming, I have a day that is dedicated to editing, and then also my days in the week where I know that I'm going to be posting. So I need to be making sure that my thumbnails and titles are sorted on those days. At the moment, I'm actually dedicating another day in the week to actually film more videos on that particular day. So I've got 2 days filming within the week, and this is just for this month so I can start to get ahead. Because if I'm using that day for this month to film extra videos, that means I'm going to have a bit more of a backlog, and I'm not going to be so hard on myself if I don't meet a deadline or I don't meet my usual schedule of posting for whatever reason. Something happens, I get sick, anything can happen week to week. So I think it's always good to be ahead with your videos in that way. The next con is that it can be hard to build several different online identities or brands. This is definitely something I struggled with when I started more than one YouTube channel, because I'd spent so many years building up this one brand that I had for myself, which was that I was a beauty and fashion photographer. That was what I did, that was what I specialized in, and basically that was it. And so then moving into a YouTube channel where I was doing travel vlogging and I was doing travel related videos and talking about a totally different topic, it felt almost unnatural for me because it was going against the brand that I had built myself on my other channel. Especially again when I started this channel, and then again I was trying to build a different brand as someone who was a freelancer, who had their own business, who was pretty familiar with social media and marketing in that way. So I kind of feel like I'm wearing many different hats at this point, and it can be really hard to individually build those brands. Or for some of you, depending on the niches that you have on different YouTube channels, you may feel the need to combine them all in some way. So it is very difficult to build those brands individually, and at the moment I am trying to keep each YouTube channel fairly separate from one another. I do obviously mention my other YouTube channels on here, and I definitely talk about them a lot because I think that they're relevant to this YouTube channel as well and the content that I provide. But I tend not to focus on my other YouTube channels when I'm filming content for some of my other YouTube channels, if that makes sense. So I try to keep it fairly separate. The next con is that it can get confusing at times. Now, if you don't have a schedule or some sort of production schedule at least each week that you stick to, things can start to get quite confusing having more than one YouTube channel. And especially if you're doing a lot of brand collabs, it can be hard to remember which brand collab is for which YouTube channel. I've had this happen a few times where I've had several brand collabs going on in any given month, maybe even a lot more than just several, and it has been really confusing to keep up with and to remember who you're talking to with each brand collab and remembering what video you're supposed to be posting and working on. It can be tricky, and it does require kind of like that extra level of organization, which personally I found really difficult because I'm not the most organized person naturally. So I do feel like I've had to build myself a bit more of a system around all of this that works for me and that I know that I can somehow stay on top of. And then the next con I find is a bit of an interesting one, but I feel that it can be difficult if one of your YouTube channels suddenly does very well, and maybe you have a video that goes viral, maybe you've got an influx of brand collabs for a particular channel, maybe you're just getting a lot more attention on one than the other, and you're starting to really get traction with it. It's hard to know whether to really run with it or whether to still split your time kind of evenly between several YouTube channels. I've had this happen on one or two occasions already with having the 3 YouTube channels where a video has done really well on one of my channels, and particularly with this channel I've had it happen where I've had a video do really well and I've had to make that decision in reeling back from other channels in order to pursue more on this channel. So it can be hard to know what to do in those situations, especially if you still feel obliged to do more of an even output on each channel. It's really hard when one of your channels does really well and it's like, do I run with this as long as I can? Do I really put everything into this channel now? Like, what do you do? There's a lot of questions around that and it's really hard to answer. I've learned to be a lot more go with the flow when it comes to this kind of thing now. At the moment, I am just seeing how each of these YouTube channels performs, and if things go well with any of my YouTube channels at any given point, then I guess I'll just run with it for as long as I can, because at the end of the day, YouTube really isn't forever in terms of your growth. So I do think that when you get those opportunities, it's usually a good idea to take them, and I just kind of go with the flow now. I don't think about it too much. You know, if a video does well, then I just keep posting and I keep sort of putting my efforts into it and still putting efforts into my other YouTube channels, because at the end of the day, I wanted to be creatively fulfilled when I was creating these YouTube channels. So that's kind of my mantra around it now, just to go with the flow. But it can be really difficult. Not everyone is going to be in that same situation. And as I said, not everyone has as much time or flexibility to put into several YouTube channels, and particularly if one is doing really well and you really want to run with it. So that's just something to keep in mind. And that's really the cons overall that I've found with having more than one channel. And I think it's really important, as I was just mentioning, to go into this with more of an open mind and a little bit of flexibility if you can with having more than one YouTube channel. I think that's the best way to go, because then you're not tending to overthink things too much and you're not really stressing out like whether you've made the right decision, whether your niches are the right ones that you've picked. You know, should you be just kind of like discarding one of your YouTube channels at some point? There's a lot of things that will go through your head if you've got more than one channel, but I do think it's best to go into it with an open mind and a little bit of flexibility. And I do have to mention that this is something that will not work for everyone. Not everyone is going to thrive with several YouTube channels. It is going to be very overwhelming for some people. It's going to be too much for them, and that is totally okay. So I think that, again, this is not going to work for everyone, but in my personal instance, I found that it was really worth it. As I mentioned, I was lucky having a little bit more flexibility with my day-to-day lifestyle. Being a freelancer already, I was kind of in charge of my hours and in charge of my days. So I feel that for me, I was lucky enough to really have the ability and the privilege to start those YouTube channels knowing that I could kind of work around them during the week. But I totally understand that not everyone is going to be in that position. So it is something to keep in mind. However, if you have been thinking about starting a second channel and some of the pros or the cons even speak to you in this video, and you think to yourself, yeah, I really want to do this, then take the opportunity, because, you know, YouTube, as I've mentioned, the growth is not going to be forever with any given YouTube channel. So it's always good to have kind of like backup options, or even just not putting all of your eggs in one basket. Well, thank you so much for watching this video today. And if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, make sure you do, because I'll be posting a lot more in future. Let me know down in the comment section below if you've started a second YouTube channel, if you have more than one, or if you're thinking about starting a second YouTube channel. I really want to hear all your thoughts and what niches you're interested in. I really want there to be a conversation about this in the comments because I think it would be really interesting. Also, let me know in the comments if there's anything in particular you would like to see on my YouTube channel because I'm always open to requests. But thank you so much as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.